Okay. Well, again, hello to everybody who wasn't here when I first logged on. Any questions on transaction issues that are kind of pending? I know Jessica had a question about List Hub, and I think we're working on that, right?
Yeah, and I think List Hub and Listing Hub is two different things, but I'm going to work with Kelly Hancock to try to figure that out. It was for an advertising thing that I wanted to do through Breakthrough Broker.
Yeah, okay. I think they're the same. And James should be reaching out to you, our guy at BH&G, to compare notes. But I think when I inquired about it, we have access to Listing Hub or List Sync and Listing Info or something like that through BH&G. So we, and I'll talk to Heather about doing a training on this. We can access how many internet sites our personal listings have been advertised on and what the viewings have been. And we can print out a report to give to our sellers on our individual listings. I know I get a summary report at the end of each month that says how many total listings we've advertised on the internet and how many total eyeballs, and it's usually between 15 and 20,000 views for our, 50, 60 listings, 70 listings. But you can log into your own report on your own listings, and we need to figure out how to do that and teach everyone to do that. Okay, Heather.
Yeah, Jessica, I'd love to, if you're on that, if you set up that call with him.
Yeah, list track.
Would love to be on it too, so I can.
Right, okay, yeah. We'll get that going. Yeah, list track, I think is it, Amy says. Okay, let me start if there's no transaction questions. Let me start. Hold on just a second. Let me just mute everybody here. So I'm just going to mute everybody just so there's no background noise. This is a carryover item from a couple of weeks or the last training we had. It has to do with the RR. So, and the RR is generated out of buyer's inspections. So I'm just going to recap all the places that buyer's inspections come up in various paragraphs in the RPA. So we're looking at the RPA right now. Hopefully you can see that. Heather, can we see that? Okay. Nobody's saying they can't see it. So it starts here in paragraph, after the grid. It starts here as early as paragraph 7. This is closing in possession. And the question we always get, our sellers want to insist, well, I'm going to sell the property as is, right? And we can confidently say to them at the time we're discussing the listing, yes, the contract calls for the property to be delivered as is in its present physical condition as of the date of the contract, of a date of acceptance. So that's under 7B here, condition of property on closing. And it says, unless otherwise agreed, the property shall be delivered as is in its present physical condition as of the date of acceptance of the property, including pool, spa, landscaping, and grounds to be maintained in substantially the same conditions as the date of acceptance. And all debris and personal property not included in the sale shall be removed when possession is delivered to buyer. All items shall be deemed abandoned. Buyer, if items are not removed, all If items are not removed when possession is delivered to buyer, all items shall be deemed abandoned. Buyer, after first delivering to the seller a written notice to remove the items within 3 days, may pay to have such items removed or disposed of, or may bring legal action as per this agreement to receive reasonable costs from the seller. So we can confidently tell that seller, you know, it is an as-is sale. You had to remove debris and personal property. But other than that, the property is being sold as is, subject to the buyer's investigation rights. So what are those investigations rights? So they get addressed next in paragraph 8C. This is 8C down here. It says investigation of property. This agreement is specified in paragraph 3L3, that's the grid, contingent upon buyer's acceptance of the condition of and any other matter affecting the property. And then it refers us to paragraph 12. So we keep dropping down here. Condition of the property is kind of inspection and condition of the property are kind of two of the major things. And we should be telling our buyers, you know, you're buying the property as is, subject to your inspection rights. And you have the right to request repairs, and we'll get to that in just a second. So then number 12 is specifically buyer's investigation of property and matters affecting the property. The buyer shall, within the time specified in 3L3, have the right, buyer's expense, unless otherwise agreed, to conduct inspections, investigations, tests, surveys, and other studies. The buyer's investigations known as collectively. And they should be include but not be limited to these various items. And then it talks about the ability to sell the buyer to access the property and so forth and so on. And then finally, in 14B, 14, it talks about the time periods, removal of the contingencies, and the cancellation rights. And then again, this talks about the seller's delivery of documents, refers to all those paragraphs where the seller's got to give up documents, the buyer review of documents, and request for repair. So that's what we're focusing in on here is the request for repair. So under 14B2, it gives the buyer, it says the buyer may, within the same time specified within 3L3, request that the seller make repairs or take any other action regarding the property, CAR form RR. Seller has no obligation to agree or to respond to buyer's requests. And it refers to CA, and the seller can do that on the form RR or the RRRR. And if the seller does not agree or does not respond, buyer is not contractually entitled to have the repairs or other requests made. They may only cancel based on the contingencies in this agreement. So those are the areas that kind of set up the use of the RR. All right. So now let's go back on to the RR. Let's see. Go to the top here. Now we've our buyer has investigated the property and determined they want to request repair, and we give them a copy of this RR form and say we need to fill this out. So it's a date of preparation. It references the contract of purchase agreement, names the parties and the property. So all the forms do. And then there's the various possible requests. The buyer request, and the seller has no obligation to respond. It's in black type there. 1A, buyer requests a seller prior to final verification of condition, repair, or take the other specified action for each item listed below or on the attached list. Repair fence, repair screen door, paragraphs 4 and B, or, you know, other things that might be done there. 4A and B are, but you know, section 1, well, section 1 is covered in B here. So there would be repair of fence, repair of screen door, etc. You know, things like that. that the buyer wants a seller to do. Then there's 1B, Section 1. Buyer requests seller to pay to have Section 1 work completed as specified in the attached pest control report dated blank, prepared by the termite company. You could check Section 2 work, doesn't happen very often. But Section 1, you know, that becomes a pretty common negotiable item in our marketplace. 1C, buyer requested seller credit buyer blank dollars, $5,000 in this case, at close of escrow. And what is that for? Well, you would say in discussion with the listing agent, you say, okay, we're going to request $5,000 for this. You know, you would tell them what it is, you put it in an email. For addendum purposes, you just want to have this credit as a credit to closing costs in most cases. And that's how the lenders like to see it when it's all completed. And then 1D is buyer requests a seller modified purchase price, and the revised purchase price shall be blank. So those are the 4 steps that the buyer can request. You would attach reports to this, you know, the report A, report B, report C, investigation, you know, sewer, whatever you've done, septic. Now there's a 3 is FHA or VA, particular things that are required under FHA, VA, that addendum. And then paragraph 4 gets to get into the ifs here. If seller agrees to all of the buyer's request or some of the buyer's request, and buyer accepts the seller's partial agreement below, buyer agrees to 4A, 1, to remove the investigation to property contingency 3L3 and 8C, and then you can put exceptions. You're still working on something, you could put it as an exception here. Or A2, buyer removes its contingencies identified on the attached signed contingency removal form CR. And we've had the discussion whether you attach the CR to this when the buyer submits the RR, that's quite okay. The way it really is written, it says if the seller agrees to, then the buyer could attach the CR. So, but you might as well get the CR done in advance, so that's okay too. And then this was the latest they added last December, was this expiration. So just like a contract offer or a counter offer, this has an expiration period, the 3rd day after it's signed by the buyer, or a date certain there. The buyer may withdraw this request before repair any time prior to the seller accepting it. Once the seller accepts it, it's kind of a done deal. Effective buyer's request, buyer makes this RR in the terms above and acknowledges received copy, making the RR any previous RR. The seller response and buyer reply for request for repair can no longer be accepted. So sometimes you've gotten an RR, you've gotten verbal feedback, well, they'll do this and not that. Submit a new RR, and when you submit the new RR, the old RR is basically dead. And then the seller's response part. And there's notes about the FHA VA stuff. The seller agrees to all the buyer's requests. The seller partial agreement agrees to this, but not that. Seller responds by giving the RRR. That's probably the most frequent one we get. Buyer's requests are not incorporated into the agreement. Seller responds to buyer's request on the attached amendment to the existing agreement. So the seller can actually attach an amendment, or the seller does not agree to buy any of these things. Sayonara. And then the seller signs. So that's the deal. And then the buyer's final response to the seller partial agreement. Do not sign this until after the seller responds. The buyer accepts it or buyer does not. Buyer withdraws this RR and makes a new request on the new RR number 2, so forth and so on. So that's the background on the RR. Just since we're doing it, let's look at the RRR form that the seller might respond with. The RRR form up here. So let's not do that.
Gary, I have a question.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm quite well. Let's assume that you've got a request for repairs and you're asking for $5,000.
Yes.
That's not something you want to send to the lenders, probably.
Well, you could. You need to. Well, Catherine says no. Kathleen says no, and she was a lender. But you don't want to send it in that form. You would want to send it as an amendment. You want to prepare an amendment to the contract, probably crediting it the closing costs. But before you make that request and submit it to the seller, I would certainly have a discussion with the buyer's lender about how they want to see that done. Kathleen, you have some expertise.
Sure. I'm still a lender. And, I just had a loan where the listing agent countered on the counter offer receipt of the termite report and another report. And I was sort of afraid that my underwriter was going to condition for those reports. But you know what? They didn't.
Hmm.
So that was cool. I was really happy about that. That one funded today with no glitches. But typically, I just want to see an addendum changing the price. I don't want to know why you're changing the price.
Right, exactly. And we don't use the addendum in that form because we have the new form called the amendment. So you use an addendum when it's an addition to an offer you're making. The RPA, you would attach an addendum that has additional terms in it. But once you're in contract under the RPA, any changes get written up on the amendment form, not the addendum form.
Yeah. Hey, Gary?
Yeah.
Then what I'm assuming would be the best approach here is to not use the request for repairs. If you're looking for a price reduction, you would not use the request for repairs because you don't want to give it to the lender. You would just come out with the amendment of contract terms, request a $5,000 credit towards closing costs, and bypass the RR altogether. Otherwise, you've got a document that you're kind of hiding from the lender and superseding it with the amendment form.
I think you would still want to use the RR form because it has all this language in there about removing the contingency.
But if you use the request for repairs for $5,000, and then you generate a modification for $5,000 for closing costs, you potentially are looking at $10,000 because you've got two documents asking for $5,000.
No, I don't think that's right because this is not a contract. This piece doesn't become part of the request for repair. Doesn't become an amendment to the contract. It just spells. It's like a letter of intent. Okay, a letter of intent. You spell out what you are going to agree to, and then you write it up in the contract. That's how the request for repair works. I like calling it like a letter of intent. This is what you intend to do. And the seller agrees. And so you've come to an agreement on the business terms, if you will, but it's not a contract. It's just an agreement on the terms. And it's subject to you completing a contract, which is the amendment to the original purchase agreement.
But then you got two documents, each calling for $5,000.
No, because the request for repair, again, think of it as an LOI, letter of intent. So you couldn't go into court and say, here, they agreed to the 5,000 here, and here they, on this amendment, they agreed to the 5,000 here, so it's 10,000. Couldn't do that because the court would throw this request for repair out and say, hey, that was just an outline of what you were going to agree to. You actually agreed to it in the amendment, and the amount was $5,000.
Okay.
Anybody else confused? You have a question about that?
And can I just say one thing?
Yes.
You can have credits for your entire closing costs, recurring and non-recurring, and it will not affect your loan to value.
Right.
So, and we
Right.
might see that as the market changes.
Right. We probably will see more credit seller kind of, what would you call it? Seller flexibility addressing requests for repairs because they may not have a backup offer and the market's not quite as strong for the seller. Let me ask you this, Kathleen, if you get a price adjustment like Eric was referring to, and let's say the parties agree to reduce the price, maybe because it didn't appraise. That's a common reason. You know, the appraisal came in low, and so the seller, the buyer wants to reduce the price to the price of the appraisal. Say it's $10,000, and they write that up in the RR. Seller agrees, and then in the amendment, you just say the price shall be the lower amount, and the lender's okay with that, right?
Sure, but I always say, do it as a credit to recurring and non-recurring closing costs, because that will save the borrower 100% cash
Yeah.
versus reducing the price will only save them whatever the down payment is. Say it's 20%, it'll only save them 20% of that amount in cash.
Right. I think we see it only used really, and that's what our recommendation is, to put it into a credit to closing costs. But sometimes the price reduction is needed because you're going to exceed the amount of the closing costs. So you not only need the credit for the closing costs, but you need another price objection.
Well, then, then you could have it so much credit towards and prices adjusted X.
Yes, right. Okay, good. Thank you for that input.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions on that matter? Great. I want to look at the this form we got. Let me see where I can find it. Hold on just a second. Oh, I know where I need to pull it up. Hold on. Here we go. All right. This was in this week's practice tip. And this CAR is amending this form, the defensible space form, we call it the fire hardening and defensible space disclosure and addendum, the FHDS. And it's revised as of 6/22. I think it actually is to be issued on the 20th, which would be Monday, I think. So this will be the form we use starting Monday. And SCAR is conscientious about our ability to follow these things. They make us a nice little box here. What was Bill's thing? Realtors can't read or something. I don't know. Of course, I don't know. Our realtors can read. I know that. But these trees or these decision trees are helpful in walking through these things, particularly with our clients. So let's walk through this together. So this is this decision tree to decide whether this form, the FHDS, is needed or not. So step one, is the property located in an area where a local city or government defensible space or vegetation management program applies? So we're going to have to know that, you know, in your local area. If you're doing a sale within the town of Sonoma, you're going to need to know if the town of Sonoma or the county of Sonoma has a defensible space or vegetation management program. And you would call the city or call the fire department and kind of ask about that. But once you know that, you know that. And then these things go, if yes, you check the is box in 3A on the form and then go to step 2. If no, check the is not box on 3A and then go to step 4. And if the seller does not know, see the next column and find out. How do you find out if your property is in the local zone? You can go to this website, contact your local fire marshal, contact your NHD, or look in your NHD report, or contact CAL FIRE at their website. So that gives us the resources to figure this out. And it really is the seller is supposed to be doing this form. We're just assisting them, right? Step 2, if yes to step 1, does the seller have a report prepared by a authorized defensible space inspector? If yes, and the report documents and the property is in compliance, then you check the paragraphs 3B2 and 3C5. and if applicable, complete 4, and then sign the form. Check if yes, and the report documents the property is not in compliance, and the compliance status will no longer be effective as of the date of sale. Check paragraph 3B3 and go to step 3. And if no, paragraph 3B1 applies and go to step 3. Okay, now we're on to step 3. If yes to step 1 and 2, and seller does not have a defensible space report, or seller does not have a report, but the property is not in compliance, or the compliance status will not be in effect on the date of sale, does the local law require compliance with the law as a result of the sale of the property? And then again, your options here. If no, if no, if no, if no. If yes, go to step 3.1. Okay. And then there's step 3.1 and step 3.4. If no local law applies, does the seller have a report prepared by an authorized defensible space inspector within 6 months prior to the sale? If no, blah, 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 blah. And you just work through this thing a step at a time. So they've made it very simple in that respect. And the new form itself, turn that off. The new form itself, okay, so the new form itself looks like this. And it's the fire hardening and defensible space disclosure and addendum. And you can see all this new language in red. And just kind of, it's all new, basically. But these are those paragraphs they were talking about where you need to
Real
check.
quick, I have a question. So do we have to do this form and the DST or the new one, the defensible space? The one you just showed, do we have to do both?
No, that tree refers to this form.
Okay, so we only have to do this form.
Yes, yes. If we have to do this form and you follow the tree to complete it, and even if you don't have your community doesn't have one of these things, defensible space plan, you still have to do the form. So
Okay.
this will be part of every document. The other form, which is the fire, what do they call it when the fire danger exclusion? Let's see. Yeah, so this is no longer an advisory. If you look at broker risk management's cover note on this, this used to be an advisory, and it's no longer an advisory, it's a disclosure. And it should be given by a seller in every transaction, even when the seller was not obligated by law to do so. Yeah. It should only be provided by the seller to the buyer when required by law. Do not use the FH, do not use it as an advisory any longer. And then the separate, report is about whether you're in a high or very high fire hazard security zone. And those will be addressed in the NHD report. The other report is the fire hazard severity zone viewer. There's a reference here to where you can go view, but we don't want to do that. We want to let the NHD provider tell us whether it's in a high or very high fire risk area. But that's a separate thing from this defensible space disclosure. Okay. Any questions on that? they're making it more clear, you know, they had put those two documents together and it was confusing. I think this will help a lot in, and particularly with that tree, helping us make that disclosure, our sellers make that disclosure.
Definitely.
Okay. So that's all I have today. And I'll let Heather carry on with what she has on the tech side for us today.
Okay, great.
Just check the chat real fast.
Okay.
Yeah, DSDT is just a guide for use. Okay, yes. All right.
Great. So I I moved spaces because I have really bad internet in my office, so I'm in a different office. I may have missed this, but just a heads up that along with that form that Gary was just talking about, CAR is putting out all their revised forms next week. So there's 40 different forms of our contracts that they have made adjustments to. A lot of them are little, you know, rewording 2 or 3 words, but that is just a heads up. As you're doing stuff, there might be small changes, and I'm sure as we know more of them, you know, we'll point out anything if there's any significant changes, but just realize that's out there. There are webinars available if you want to watch, you know, find out all the details of all the documents. So today I'm just going to go over signing documents right from ZipForms. I have been had a ton of questions about this in the last few weeks, and a lot of people not realizing that they can, you know, send out documents to be signed directly from ZipForms and still use Docusign or use their product, which is called Docusign, I think. The big benefit is not only do you not have to download contracts to your computer, they just send them automatically. They also, when you do it right from ZipForms, it automatically fills in a lot of the signing fields and the areas that need to be completed for you. So, you know, if you go into Docusign, totally great way to do it. Upload the documents you need signed, and then you fill in, you drag over every place you need your client to sign. That's great, but if you want to save time, you can do it directly from ZipForms. Let me share that with you so that I can show you, walk you through that a little bit. I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing this already, but maybe you'll see a little trick that you know, that you forgot or you didn't know about or what have you. So I'll just walk you through it.
And Heather, I had a question and I called Katie on it. Because this is the way that I do have them sign is through Docusign with my ZipForm account. You're right, it is faster, it's easier, but after they sign, the signed documents do not automatically go back into my file on CAR ZipForms. I have to go retrieve them and put them in.
Okay, I'll show you some different ways I don't know why they're, so there's a place you can find them in ZipForms. All the completed forms are there, but there's a way you can automatically have it go right back into the transaction, into a specific folder. So I'll show you that in just a minute. That's a great question because yeah, they don't automatically just show up there. So, so here I am on ZipForms. I'm sure most of you know, you go to the CAR website, you log in there, and then there's a link right on there to click into ZipForms. That's the best way to always access because then you already have your login taken care of. Here I am on, when you first come into ZipForms, you end up on the dashboard page, and then you can, here you can always see over on the left if you have any e-sign packages out in progress. And I'm not sure why this is not accurate because I do have one out right now. I'll have to look at what I didn't do. But it always shows you there, or usually shows you there, that you've got something out that's, you know, that you're waiting for. There's a couple of different ways to start an e-sign package. You can just do it right here from your dashboard, new e-sign. Or I tend to go over into my transaction, so then I have immediate access to all the documents I'm working on, right? So I go into the transaction, I choose my transaction. This is just a big sample with a bazillion documents in it. A few things to note, there is a new e-sign button up here, so you can do it directly from here, or you can go over to the documents page and start an e-sign package there. This is over on the left-hand side, it says e-signings in progress, and then you can click right on here on view all e-signings. So this should show you, Jessica, it should show you, is it not? Have you tried accessing it right there, clicking on that? And it's not coming up.
I
That's
click
weird.
on that, but you can't do anything with that because they say that it's third party, DocuSign's third party. So it won't let me extract, it won't let me change it, nothing
Oh,
from there.
interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to investigate that because I have, I usually just go into DocuSign to grab it myself instead of, but I have had it send it over in that folder, which I'll show you in a minute. We can try that. Okay, so once you're in a transaction, or if you just do the new e-sign package, you can, like I said, you can either go into documents or you can just click on new e-sign. Now, before you do this, well, I'll just show you this way. So once you click on new e-sign, when you're in a specific transaction, it's going to automatically give you access to all the documents that are in that transaction. So these are all ones that are already sitting there. Anything you need to add, you just add up here in add external document. So for instance, if I want them to sign the purchase agreement and that contingency, then, oh yeah, there's another document I need. You can just click add external document and then browse for a document or go to Dropbox or Google Drive, wherever you save it or wherever you store it. And then you can just pick up whatever document you need. I don't have anything great here. I'll just throw this in there. Oh, yeah, that one's not going to work. Okay, let me try something else. Let me get you an actual document here. So you can see, we'll do the exclusion, authorization to exclude, right? That's one we often add in there. Well, I'm going to just add this document here. You can rename it. So if you have put it in a weird name and now you want to rename it and have it save in this particular format, you can just add it there. Click on that. Now it's been added already to your e-sign package. A lot of people get like, wait, I keep adding it, but it's not showing up here. These are the ones that are already in your folder, in your transaction. That document has already been added. You can see it over in the grayed out area behind. So you don't have to re-add it. Once you've picked everything and added everything, you just click on close. And then you can see right here what is going to show up in that e-sign packet. Now, a few things that are great to do. I really suggest renaming this. So instead of it being e-sign packet 3, it's, the disclosures or whatever you want to name it so that you know what's in there when you look at it later for some reason. Second, you can choose to either use Docusign or digital ink. That's what it's called now. They keep changing it. Digital ink is free through ZipForms. I've used that several times when Docusign is down. So if you're going and you're trying to use Docusign, it's not working, you can pop over to digital ink. It's pretty similar. It's free and it's included. It's just a little bit different. So it's pretty straightforward though. But assuming you want to use Docusign, since that's something that's provided to us by the company and we all love it, as soon as you click on the next, if you aren't already signed in, you'll have to sign into your Docusign account. Once you've done that, once you've signed in one time, it memorizes that for quite a while, so you don't have to re-sign in every time. But the first time you do it, you definitely are going to have to sign in. If there is any, this is great because it keeps giving you chances to fix what you miss. So for instance, if you miss, oh wait, I have more documents I've got to pop in there, you can click on this and get that back up. And here, Jessica, is where you can choose a folder for returning signed documents. Now, I've done this and it shows up in my in the transaction. I've created a folder in there like for all the disclosures. I have not actually gone in and re-accessed and tried to do anything with that. So I'll have to see if that works, but that's where you would do that. You just create a document and then those, a folder, and then those documents will automatically end up in your transaction again. Here, if you want,
So
Yeah.
do you have to create the folder first?
let's try it. I think you do. Yeah, this just gives you it just gives you a main folder. So,
Okay,
yes.
so can I have my templates already pre-set up for that, folder
Add in a
thing?
folder, yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep, you can
Okay.
put folders in templates, yep. Good question. All right, so if you hear, these are the 3 documents we have included. You can rearrange the order of these. So if you go, oh, no, I don't want the contingency second, I want it third, you just grab onto this little 4-way arrows, you grab onto that and you can pull it right down and put things wherever you want them to be. That didn't move, but there we go. No, it still isn't moving. Maybe you have to do it the other way. There we go. So you can move things if you want them to show up for your clients in a different order. I think that's really nice. I've many times had people, wait, I'm not supposed to sign that. I'm signing this. And when they get it in the correct order, right? When they sign the counter before they sign the whole entire contract, it makes more sense to a lot of people. So you might think about that when you're arranging this. Once you've got everything here set up, you want the top right, and I think bottom right, I can't see it on here, but I think that's bottom right. You just click on next, that'll take you to the next section. This is where you're going to add in everyone you want to have sign the document. So obviously I'm going to sign it. Maybe this guy here, Peter's going to sign it. And oh, wait a second, I didn't include someone's not showing up here. Easy to include someone. Oh yeah, my co-selling agent or whatever it is. You can add them in here. You just have to include an email. So once you've added whoever you want, then you've clicked them on the left, then you just hit close. You can, up on the top, there's the ZipForm contacts. So if you have someone you want to add that you already have memorized, you can just go into those contacts and add them that way. That makes it really easy. You forgot one of the buyers or something. So once you've added them, you click close. Here again, you can change the way it shows up right now. Everyone will receive the signing package at the same time and be able to sign it immediately. If you want people to sign the document in a certain order, then you just click here under signing order, and you can rearrange whoever you want to sign first or second or what have you. Now, why would you do this? I think it's really nice if sometimes I'm adding a little bit more information into a contract. And so I want to go in and sign it first so that when they get the contract, it has those little bits of details that maybe I added in through the digital signing. If for some reason I'm doing it that way. Once you have that the way you want it, then you click on, I can't see it, but there you go. You click on next. I don't actually want to send this because I don't know who Peter Schindler is. Oh, he's a listing agent. That's funny. That would be super funny for him to get a random document to sign. Let's see.
Heather, when you get an offer on a property, I was told that most people just email you the purchase contract, but is it really part of this thing too? In the ZipForms?
Is it really part of what?
So I was told if you get an offer on your listing that people just email you a purchase contract.
Pretty common. Yep.
So does it become part of this at some point too? Because you're sending things to the listing agent to sign.
There is a way that they can submit it through this, but most people don't. Most people are just going to email you a copy that's typically a PDF. you can, and it's a great idea to add that into your transaction, because then you have access. A lot of people just put it into Docusign to have their clients, directly into Docusign to have their clients initial it. But yeah, typically it's going to be a PDF, and so you're going to have to fill in all the initials and all the signing fields yourself.
But there's a way to
offer.
enter it into ZipForms so it becomes part of this.
You can, but when you enter it in as a PDF, then
Yeah.
it won't know where to put the signing fields.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, you can definitely, I can show you that real quick. In
okay.
a minute in the transaction.
Okay.
It's super
So
easy.
what are we doing here? This isn't like a response to, this isn't a live purchase that we're doing right here?
So this is just how to use the Docusign from ZipForms. So
Okay.
it could be.
You already taught me that one.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It could be, anytime you're doing a contract that's coming from ZipForms. So it could
Okay.
be your listing agreement. It could be
Right.
anything that you.
Disclosures.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Now the TDS and the SPQ, there's that's a whole nother class.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
having
yeah.
them digitally sign it. But
Handwritten.
I can show you guys that. So
Okay.
handwritten, or there's ways to do it digitally, but
Glide.
yeah, there's two really good ways to do it.
Okay.
So as you can see right here, so most of these signing fields are already input. Because I didn't include the buyer on this. I just threw in some random people. So a lot of the signing fields are going to be included. A few things to make note is it's not 100% perfect. It's always good to just scroll through it, make sure it's accurate. Any documents like that one that I added at the bottom, that was a PDF. I don't even remember what that was. It's not coming up. Where is it? I don't remember what I added. Didn't I add another Oh yeah, here it is. I don't know why it's not letting me see it, but anyways, so right here, anything like this that's was a PDF. Well, this one's not a PDF, but anything that you add that's not an original contract from ZipForms, you will have to add in your fields yourself. So just keep that in mind. So for instance, here, when I want to add signatures, I'm sure you guys all know this from Docusign, you just you make sure the name is correct at the top, and then you can just drag in signature fields. You can drag in to add their name, anything that you want. If there's a checkbox that you forgot to complete, you can do that. All sorts of different things. Let's see, let me get off of there. Stuck on checkbox. Let me take that out. Another thing just to note is that on the far right here, it shows you a little small version of the contract. It does have these little yellow and blue tags. So each signer has, just like in Docusign, has a different color. So it'll show you on this little tag, on this page, there are 2 signing fields. And on this page, none, there's none here. Scrolling down, okay, there's another page that has 2 signing fields. So if you know your document well, and you're like, wait, there should be signature fields here, you can click on that, it zooms to that one, and then you can add in those signature fields. Let's see. That is basically it. I'm not going to click send because I don't want to send it to a random listing agent that doesn't know what I'm talking about. But you would click send here, and then then it goes off. Now, a few people also had a little problem because when they went over into Docusign, they didn't find these documents. And what we found is that that they had multiple Docusign logins. So if you log in, whatever email you log in through ZipForms, that same Docusign login is the one you have to use to be able to access these forms. All right, and then let's see.
Also one thing that I do just to help everybody out is I click actions and then I hit edit recipients. And then I always add my TC.
Mhm.
And I don't have her sign anything. I just say receives a copy. So once
Awesome.
it's signed, she gets a copy and I don't have to remember to go back and download it and send it to her.
That is a really, really great step. Also, right in here is where you get to, so up here, Jessica's talking about here, actions. She said edit recipient, where she adds her TC or anyone else that needs to receive the document once it's signed. Here is also where you edit the message. So on Docusign, that comes, it automatically gives you a field to write a message. Well, through ZipForms, it doesn't do that. So you have to go into actions, go into edit message, and then it gives you that opportunity to send a message with the digital signature package.
And Heather, do you know if there's a way that I can make a template that does this every time?
There is. That there's the exact same message in there.
Message and
Mhm.
or, you know, always adding Katie, because there's a sometimes I'll forget because I'm in a hurry.
Right.
Or
You
I'm
know,
on my phone
I-
because it's
I
a little
don't
bit
know.
more
That's a great
difficult on my
idea.
phone.
I wonder if there's a way to do that in templates. I will look into that for you, Jessica. I don't know, but that would be really, really nice.
Yeah, I like anything that's automatic as busy. as you
Absolutely,
can.
right? So we don't, yeah, less likely to forget. So yeah, that's a great idea. I will look into that for you. Oh, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna close this out and then let's see. Kathleen, you asked how to add documents. Okay, so let me show you real quick here, everyone. So this is a transaction. And Kathleen, all you need to do is see this little button right here, add doc. So you click on that, and it's just like in the signing package, you can browse for or reach into Dropbox or Google Drive to get that and add a document back into this transaction. Super easy. All right, any questions? I think we're gonna do another templates workshop soon because I know a lot of people haven't set up their templates in here and it's so helpful. It makes it, like Jessica said, just more automated so you're less likely to forget anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when I first did I guess she was telling me about a template. So I created blank listing thing. But then when I did my listing, I used that to create my listing paper. So now I have a listing where the name of the file is blank listing form. Is there a way to change those names?
The name of the transaction?
Well, you know, the
Huh.
name of your forms in your ZipForms. You know how you have all your past, like you've got names over here, like to
Right.
the left, right? Is there a way to
Yeah.
change those names?
Let me see. So I'm gonna click on that sample road and anybody see it? There should be a way to change it, right? I've never done that. I always just do, you know,
A new thing, but yeah, so
when I
I'm
set
looking
that up.
forward to your template class. Yeah.
Okay, record. No, I don't see any way to change the name of that transaction. Does anybody else? Signings. Nope.
Yeah, I think she just wants to set up a template that's generic and doesn't have a name attached to it. So you'll cover that for us.
Yes, you bet.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Great. You're going to close your screen. There we go. And we're approaching 12 o'clock. So we'll let everybody go unless there's additional questions. Seeing none, we'll carry on next week. We should have a class next Friday, 11 o'clock, and to see you all then. Have a good week in between. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day, Gary.
Happy
Yeah.
Father's Day.
Thank you. You know, happy Father's Day to all the fathers. All right. Be well.
Heather.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye, thanks. You have a good one.